Hey guys, welcome back. Honolulu Blue Breakdown is here. We got myself, Troy, Jordan, Zach, and Matt. Hi YouTube, hi Spotify. Guys, we got breaking news. We got a new OC. What do you guys think? Jordan, lead us off. What's your thoughts here on Drew Petzing?
Yeah, I think like everybody else, I had to do a little bit of research. Not gonna lie, didn't know who he was, didn't know he was candidate. I know that was one of the interviews that they didn't announce, so interesting move by them. I found it more interesting that they had that conviction. They went. I think Zach mentioned that in the group text, like you went out and just got your guy. Playoffs still going on. Most teams might kind of wait until the dust settles from there to see who might be available from the championship teams or the winning teams or whatnot. But as you can see, I like the resume, the background here. He's got a lot of experience. He was a defensive back. He played defense, and then he spent most of his coaching career on the offensive side of the ball. So you can kind of take a look here. He's coached with former head coaches connections. He's got Norv Turner, Pat Shermer, Gary Kubiak, Bill Callahan. Let's see, former OCs that he worked with that are now current head coaches: Kevin Stefanski, Ben Johnson, Shane Steichen, offensive line coach Clayton Adams down at Dallas, and then Hank Fraley, our very own Lions offensive line. I think they might have been at Cleveland together. So that's kind of an interesting connection. Maybe Fraley went to bat for him or something like that. But yeah, I know that Matt, you mentioned, I don't know if you want to speak to it a little bit, the criticism and just kind of the fan base teeing off a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all saw it, whether it was on Twitter, whether it was, on YouTube, whatever. There was a lot of like, I don't know if hate's the right word or confusion. I wasn't in that camp. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about him himself. Like you said, Jordan, I was doing research as well, but I think there was a lot of like, who is this guy? How can he be a good hire if no one really knows about him? He's not really on anyone else's radar. I'm not in that camp. So, the only thing I'll say is he's got OC, like he's been calling plays for the last few years in Arizona. I don't think he had the most versatile corpse, down there either. He had Trey McBride, and it had a solid running game, in 23 and 24 from what I see. But that's going to be my big question is, what does he think of David Montgomery? And is he going to vie to maybe have him back? So that's going to be my question number one, to see how that plays out over the next, month or two. But yeah, no, I'm not going to, hate on anything. Like, I obviously, Dan and Brad, they kind of know what they're doing, right? They've been, walking this for the last 5 years. And, yeah, no, I'm excited for it. And I think maybe we build up our tight ends room based on kind of his history as well. That'd be nice. Maybe we add another weapon aside from Laporta, and hopefully he comes back healthy again. But no, I mean, it's exciting. Like, I think I said it before, but getting someone who's called plays before and just to kind of know the rhythm, what works, what doesn't work, and to come into this system, obviously, he's going to be taking a little bit of, I'll say wisdom from Dan himself, knowing the team that we have. So no, I'm excited for it.
I looked at it from the perspective of he was on defense first, and he kind of like, oh man, it really grinds my gears when they run this against me. So seeing it from that perspective is just kind of different. I like it. I like that they went outside of house because, we were kind of critical of Johnny Moe, and that was like, oh, we'll just promote the guy from within. I mean, we were happy he went outside of that. Matt, you nailed it. I'm expecting to hear a positive story from David Montgomery's camp in the next 2 months. Like, we're excited about what the next year would bring with the new OC. This is kind of how he expects to use us. We're excited for the opportunity. We're ready to get back on track. If we don't hear that, maybe, this wasn't as great as we thought. But I was surprised that it was overwhelmingly negative when you kind of looked on, the fan pages and that type of stuff. You mentioned Twitter, people just going, did they cheap out? There was a funny thing where it was the Family Guy thing, like, we can rebuild him, but we don't want to spend a lot of money. And it's like Peter barely
Oh,
walking.
yeah,
So it's like,
that's right.
it made me laugh, but it's like, I don't think this was the case. I said it in the group chat. They had conviction. It felt like this is the guy that we think can lead us to where we want to go. And I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I wasn't really expecting them to hire an OC who I had heard about. You know, we kind of had fun talking about Mike McDaniel, but I thought that was a pretty long shot. So when it was announced and I hadn't heard about him, I just kind of, that was what I was expecting. And then the more I've learned about him, I have, like you said, Matt, gotten more excited. You know, he's got those connections. Jordan, you mentioned his time with Hank Fraley in Minnesota, which is, you know, a good, because that means most likely they have a working relationship, and we'll keep Hank around, who's one of our best coaches. Also, it's a scheme and identity fit. You know, that's kind of the big thing. He has his quarterbacks under center. He runs the ball. He uses the tight ends. That sounds like what our offense is when it's clicking on all cylinders. So you mentioned the Montgomery thing. Hopefully that helps keep both running backs, helps build the tight end room. One interesting thing to watch is who the tight end coach is going to be. So our previous tight end coach has left to go back to the college ranks, and Arizona has one of the best tight end coaches in the league. Obviously, we've seen what Trey McBride has done over the last couple of years. So, you know, maybe this guy can bring him along with him, you know, and kind of give us another good coach to add to the group. You know, with Kevin Stefanski, I think that's an interesting angle too, where we hired this guy right after Stefanski tried to bring Petzing to Atlanta. And so we jumped on that before, you know, Stefanski could. So yeah, it seems, what's that?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I'm thinking,
up.
yeah, exactly. And then you mentioned, you know, him and Ben Johnson are friends. He was in Ben Johnson's wedding, so that's kind of cool. So he seems like he's got a lot of connections. I do like how he started as a defensive player and then moved to offense, like you said, Zach. I think that gives him a good perspective. And then he's coached a lot of different things. I mean, you see receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, you know, and then finally offensive coordinator. So he's very well-rounded. He's a young guy still, but also I don't know if he's like a hot name on the head coaching market, you know, whereas McDaniel could come here and leave in 1 year, or whoever, some of those, the names fans would know would be like one-time deals, where this guy I think will be here a couple of years. So yeah, I'm excited about it. The more I read about him, I like, and then kind of looking forward to his first press conference just to see kind of what he sounds like, how he, you know, answers certain questions, because, you know, obviously the certain questions about certain players will get asked. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think you mentioned a little bit too, Troy, like the culture fit that I think Dan, Brad, they were all looking for that. And, you know, at the end of last season, or I guess this season, you know, as the Lions were eliminated, you know, Dan said a couple things of, hey, we got to get back to what brought us to this point, you know, 2-3 years ago, when they were still kind of building or rebuilding, if you will, what the word grit meant, what got us to the division, right? So I think having him, they were convicted of, hey, he is going to be the right fit to get us back there. He's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, I think, too. Whereas, you know, you said it too, Ben Johnson's the connection. There might be a little bit of competitiveness there. You know, number one, hey, I want to be just as good as him, maybe better. Hey, we play Ben twice a year. I want to compete with him. So I think that'll be fun as well. So it sounds like he's going to be a good fit and just kind of stabilizing things from an OC perspective.
I'm excited that he's not a booth OC.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
so he's on the field.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It does matter.
I think so too.
I'm sure there's advantages to being in the booth, maybe emotionally and getting a different perspective. But for me personally, I feel like I'd want somebody down on the sideline with me, you know, that I can immediately talk to and share that kind of emotion with throughout the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, you guys are crushing it. I'm right with you. It gives me hope for the run game, identity, getting all that back. Now we have a lot of work to do with our O-line, obviously, and frankly, our tight end room with the uncertainty of Laporta's injury, right? When he's going to come back, how he's going to come back, what's that going to look like? I don't even know. Are the rest of them free agents? Like, is Brock Wright a free agent?
One of them's not. I think Brock Wright's actually not a free agent, but all the other ones are.
Still, we're going to want to revamp. I got here from Colton Pouncey. He covers the Lions for The Athletic via X. He pulled up the Cardinals personnel usage for the past few years. 11 personnel, so that's the one running back, one tight end, 53.7%, which is only 26th in the league. 12 personnel, two tight ends, that's 25.9%, seventh in the league. 13 personnel, 12.5%, which is first. So the three tight end package, I mean, we're going to need some run blocking tight ends, whether that's free agency or through the draft. I know I kind of texted right away when we hired him, and that's like the first thing I heard was that he likes his tight ends. I'm like, oh boy, that Kenyon Sadiq. When I saw him, what game did they zoomed in? I'm like, that dude's massive. He has like that tiny little shirt jersey or whatever too, but I'm like, that'd be a little too rich of a pick. Obviously we need to shore up the trenches, and I hope we go that route. But I was looking at the free agents list here, and I don't have a clue how much they'd cost. Like Kyle Pitts might be a little too expensive, maybe a little overrated too. But you got free agency coming up: Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, Chigon Konkwu, I think Tyler Conklin, and Gerald Everett. I thought I saw other names. Like we could, or if we go out and trade, try and get somebody cheap. We don't need like premier tight ends, but just kind of an interesting. I feel like they got to beef up that room as well. We kind of saw the effects of it, and I know I gave them a good grade last week, but that definitely needs to be upgraded if we're going to be using 13 personnel first, the most in the league with this new OC. But and then the other question too, and I think I've seen this touched on or heard, I can't remember exactly from who, but how is that going to possibly affect our boy JMO and Tesla too, like his development, if we're, not bringing as many receivers on the field in certain situations. So,
but he feels like a Dan guy. We're going to line up with three tight ends and we're just going to run it at you. Like that sounds exactly like what Dan wants to do.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And Demo's perfect for that too. Let Demo smash 13 personnel, then bring Gibbs in, and it's like, okay, now you got to cover Laporta, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Tesla. Good luck. Little play action.
Yeah. Well, and at the very least too, like we don't have to like kind of worry about Dan calling plays and or taking the play calling duties. Like I think this is a guy where maybe even if there is a game or two in the beginning where hey, we don't look super high octane, it just takes time to establish those relationships too and see that play out. So I don't see any of that happening again, which is kind of refreshing. Did you guys see Amon-Ra, his comments?
Yeah, he seemed pretty positive.
Yeah. So shout out St. Brown podcast. So he basically came to the defense of, obviously kind of Drew, but in defense of Brad and Dan, he's basically like, hey, you don't think Brad and Dan don't know what they're doing here? So that was kind of cool to see too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and before we, I guess, look at his stats in Arizona, and maybe their offense wasn't the greatest offense stats wise. They had so many injuries, and I remember a couple months ago when we were trying to match up the Lions injury issue, basically how injured the Lions was. And if you remember, maybe the number one team or the top two teams was Arizona, where they just had so many injuries. Obviously, Kyler Murray always getting hurt. So he's been an OC where he's lost his quarterback, which is essentially nothing you can do there. But he's also lost his running backs. I mean, Connor got hurt this year. Benson got hurt, their backup. They had offensive linemen hurt. I think Marvin Harrison was hurt for a while and hasn't fully developed. So, he's had to work around a lot of issues and still.
And speaking of, I mean, his head coach is choking dudes on the sideline.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot working against him.
Yeah, I was trying to say, I think Trey McBride might have missed a few games too.
Did amazing. I mean, Michael Wilson had a great year. So we think about like his work with young receivers. If we're thinking about JMO or Tesla, I mean, Michael Wilson blew up.
True. That's true.
There's some positive signs there for his development of receivers.
I know my initial reaction, I will admit, I wasn't as I'm always cool like a cucumber, but I was a little disappointed. I wanted that splash. I've always Brad, I want the splash trade. I want the splash free agency. In the draft, he's done a few splashes trading up and whatnot, but I was kind of hoping for that big name, even if it was Dayball or, somebody that I knew of. But once it hit and I kind of processed it on the car ride home, my 7-minute commute, and I'm just thinking it's the same as Morton, where it's you just have no idea how it's going to play out. You got to give it time. They feel confident in this guy. And now I feel a lot more too, doing the research, despite, hearing a lot of the Cardinals fans input, oh, he's the worst ever and whatnot. It's totally different team scenario. We're still a top 5, top 10 offense. Even though we didn't even make the playoffs, you know what I mean? So give the guy a chance, Lions fans, trust him, Brad, and MCDC, and let her rip, let's see.
Yeah.
The hard part's done. The weapons are here. Someone just has to pull the strings, a lot of teams are out there trying to find a number 1 wide receiver or a quarterback. It's we have all those things. We just need to keep everyone happy and rowing in the same direction. We'll be fine.
Right. Yeah.
We got to fix the trenches.
Some of the,
beef up the trenches.
Yeah,
a little bit.
100%. And some of the, trick plays, the cute stuff that kind of built us up to who we were.
That's true.
I mean, yeah, that's super fun to have, right? But now we have the weapons. We know, we have a quarterback. We have, Panay. We've got St. Brown. We've got Tesla. We've got J-Bo. We've got running backs, Gibbs, right? So we've got the people. We need a stable offense that, just gets the ball in the right hands.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need him to come in and work miracles. He just needs to, like you said, Zach, just kind of, keep us at 55 steady and we'll be fine.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, any final thoughts on this?
Drew, if you're watching, hit us up. We'll bring you on the next pod and, get some good PR for you, buddy.
Yeah, we'd love to break down the roster with you. Watch our last episode, Drew. We broke down the offense. You can get an idea of what you're walking into.
Mm-hmm.
And then next week, we'll be back into our regular scheduled programming here. We'll look at the defense, but we had to jump in here with a little breaking news. Unless we get some more breaking news, we'll push the defense back. But that's our plan for next week. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.